Hey everyone, it's November. It's a World Cup month. The World Cup is less than 3 weeks away, 18 days to be precise from the release of this video. And we are exactly 1 week away from the release of the US men's national team's World Cup squad. So let's make one final prediction of who the 26 players are going to be who go to Qatar to represent the United States of America. Welcome back once again. It's been a little while. We're starting our pre-World Cup coverage today, right here. My name is Alex. Make sure you subscribe, follow me on Twitter and TikTok. We've got lots of World Cup stuff coming up as we get closer and closer to November 21st, where the USA will face Wales. Let's jump right into the roster predictions. We're going to go position by position, look at who's on the plane, who's on injury standby, who's just trying to battle their way in but won't make it, and yeah, we'll find out who's going to the World Cup and who is not. All right, we're gonna start with the goalkeepers, and I think Matt Turner's a lock. I honestly think that Zack Steffen is also a lock. I wouldn't necessarily bring him. I think he hasn't been that good, and I'm not sure how reliable of a backup he is, but he'll probably still go. I hope he doesn't start. That would be troubling. On the plane, there's three options here: Sean Johnson, Ethan Horvath, and Gaga Slonina. I think he's going to go with Sean Johnson because Sean Johnson is actually in some pretty good form right now. I know he didn't have the best game against Philadelphia in the Eastern Conference Final, but that game he played in the Eastern Conference Semifinal against Montreal was really good. So I did put Sean Johnson down, and he's going to be in camp with Berhalter. Gaga is also going to be in camp with Berhalter, but he hasn't called him up since January into an actual roster, and he's yet to debut. So while I personally would bring Gaga Slonina to the World Cup, I don't think that's what Gregg Berhalter is unfortunately going to do. Ethan Horvath is in good form. Honestly, I would take him over Johnson as well. He got man of the match today as I'm filming this, but I don't think he's going to go. I think he's going to bring Sean Johnson. But yeah, I don't know for certain it's going to be Johnson. That's one position I'm really unsure about. But at the end of the day, it's the third goalie, and it really doesn't matter. Let's move on to the fullbacks. So we're going to start with the right backs. And we know for certain Serginho Dest is going. There are actually some questions here because in the last camp, Gregg did bring 5 right backs. With Yedlin, Scally, and Cannon going. So I think Yedlin's going to go because he's been in every camp since the Nations League. I think Scally's going to go because he's also a backup at left back. Reggie Cannon is the one who I was really on the fence with. When I was making the final decisions of who were going to be in this prediction, it came down to him, Malik Tillman, Christian Roldan, and Jordan Morris. All 4 guys who have pretty much been in every camp when they've been available. Since Tillman came into the program, he's only had 2, but those 3 guys have been in camp consistently when they've been available. But there's always been room for them because there's always been injuries. At this moment, the only player ruled out is Miles Robinson. So there's no precedent of who he cuts because it's just extra players in positions that don't matter. I went with Reggie Cannon. I think he's going to go as a 4th right back. But his form hasn't been the best. He's also coming back from injury. I personally would not bring Reggie Cannon. I would only bring Dest, Yedlin, and Scally, and then Robinson at left back and invest more further forward. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I am going with Reggie Cannon, but that is one position I am not 100% certain about. Left back is pretty straightforward. Anthony Robinson's a lock. He's going to start. He's going to play every single minute. His backup is Serginho Dest, and the 3rd string is Joe Scally, and the 4th string is Kellen Acosta. In short, no other left backs are going. Sam Vines was in the last camp and even started one of the games, but he was really bad in that game against Japan, and his form has dropped off significantly after he had a very hot start for Royal Antwerp. So he's not going to the World Cup. John Tolkien, I put him here. He's not going to go, but I don't even know if he's in the provisional roster or not. But the thing is, He's in camp right now, so he's in front of Berhalter. So stranger things have happened. I just threw him on standby list because he could theoretically, if Anthony Robinson couldn't go for whatever reason, he's just there. So yeah, that's the left backs. It'll be Robinson though. That's it. Center backs, the roughest position on the roster in my opinion. Walker Zimmerman will go. Aaron Long, while I don't think very many people would bring him, he's gonna go. He's probably gonna start. Cameron Carter-Vickers is going to go. Chris Richards should start if he's healthy. Honestly, probably would start if he was healthy. Here's the problem. He hasn't played a game since the end of August, if I'm not mistaken. And he's not going to be even training with the team for another 5 or 10 days. So he's cutting it really close. Even if he is at the World Cup, do you really want a guy who hasn't played a game in 3 months starting at center back? I don't know. But I put him in the pending injury category. I think he'll go. I think those 4 are locked in if Richards is healthy. If not, I think Mark McKenzie is the next man up. And I put Eric Palmer-Brown on this list. If for whatever reason 2 players couldn't go, Eric Palmer-Brown is the next man up. But it's going to be these 4 unless something ridiculous happens. Defensive midfielders. There's not much to say here. It's going to be Adams and Acosta. Those are the 2. There's nothing more to say about it. James Sands is not going to go to the World Cup, but if hypothetically Adams or Acosta isn't able to go, James Sands would be the next man up, but I don't think that's going to happen, so that's more of a theoretical than anything else. Let's move on to the central midfielders, the box-to-box midfielders. So these are what we would call the 8s. Weston McKennie and Yunus Musa are locks. They're probably going to start in a 4-3-3. Luca De La Torre is also a similar mold of an 8 in that he can play in that dual 8 role. He's pending injury. He's a question mark. I don't think that there's a gap between De La Torre, Cardoso, and Malik Tillman, who's listed as an attacking midfielder. I don't think there's a big gap between any of those 3. Luca De La Torre, while he's a very popular player among a certain corner of the fan base, is incredibly overrated. If he's not 100% fit, I don't see a point in taking him. I would bring Johnny Cardoso instead. If he's healthy, bring him because he has more experience in camp, more experience with the group. But if he's not 100%, there's really no point in bringing him because I would not feel comfortable with him getting on the field in the World Cup anyway. So, yeah, I would bring Johnny Cardoso over him if those were the 2 options, if he's not 100% fit. I threw Aiden Morris on the standby list here just because while he's never gotten a USMNT call-up in his life until this week, he's currently in training camp with the national team, so why not? But he's really just there to make up the numbers as far as I'm aware. But yeah, Luca De La Torre, we'll see what happens with his injury. Hopefully he has a speedy recovery, but if he's not at his best, I don't see a point in bringing him because at the end of the day, he's really not that good, and he's just like a placeholder in this roster. On to the attacking midfielders. Now, this is the next spot where I had actually some trouble making my prediction. Gio Reyna and Brendan Aronson are locks. Malik Tillman and Christian Roldan. This is where things get tricky. So, Tillman was specifically recruited by Berhalter in April. Berhalter flew out to Germany, met with him in April, convinced him to switch to the U.S. He announced his switch in May, filed it with FIFA, and made his debut in June, and then was called in again in September and actually got some minutes. So I think he wouldn't have done that if he didn't think Tillman was going to go to the World Cup. He wouldn't have gone out of his way to recruit him so urgently. But the thing is, Roldan has been in every single camp he's been available for since Berhalter took over, except for one. So there's nothing to suggest that Roldan wouldn't go. That's why this was a really tricky decision. This one was a flip of the coin for me. Is it going to be Tillman, who is an attacking versatile option, or Christian Roldan, who isn't going to play anyway and is there for vibes? With the flip of the coin, I went with Malik Tillman. I'm not sure. I think, and personally, if it were up to me, I would even do this. I would bring Christian Roldan, not on the roster, but just as a coach He can bring his vibes, he can be in the locker room, whatever, but he's not going to play anyway, so what's the point in burning a roster slot on him? In the frowny face category is Georgi Mihailovic, who everyone agrees should be on the roster and was one of the best players in MLS this season, yet wasn't even called into the pre-camp. Whatever, c'est la vie. He is going to AZ Alkmaar. Hopefully he lights it up, but he is unfortunately in the frowny face category on this roster because he is not going to go to the World Cup. The wingers, Christian Pulisic and Tim Weah will go. Then I had to make a decision between Areola and Morris. I think Areola is just an outright better player than Morris. Morris has been in every Berhalter camp he's been available for and actually has gotten a decent number of minutes. Like, he played in every World Cup, pretty much every World Cup qualifier that I can think of that he was available for when he came back from injury. He even got a start against Honduras in that game in Minnesota. He actually scored a goal against El Salvador. It was kind of like a one-off goal, but I wouldn't bring him. I don't think he's gonna go. And the reason I say that is because, like I said, I had to make two cuts because the Berhalter roster, the guys that he's called up every time he's gotten the chance to, because he's really consistent with his call-ups. There were 28 guys, so I had to cut two of them. I cut Roldan, and I'm also cutting Morris. Morris is in really, really bad form. He hasn't scored a goal since August. He only has 2 goals since like the beginning of July. He only has 2 goals for an attacking option and like 1 assist somewhere in there. If he has to drop one, I think it's Jordan Morris. Like I said, he's on standby. He could still very well go to the World Cup if there's an injury. But right now, I have Jordan Morris being pretty much the last guy cut, along with him and Roldan. Those are the last 2 cuts I think Berhalter will make at this moment. But I could very well be wrong on this. Strikers. Well, there are 6 guys in the striker pool. At least that's what Berhalter said in September. Ricardo Pepi, Josh Sargent, Hayes Ferreira, Jordan Pefok, Haji Wright, and Brandon Vasquez. We'll start off with who's on the plane. Pepi, Ferreira were always going to go. It was never really in doubt. Ferreira's Berhalter's go-to number 9 right now. He's in bad form right now. Like, he's been struggling in the playoffs, and his team got eliminated. But he's still Berhalter's favorite striker, and probably will start at least 1 game. Ricardo Pepi, even when he was in bad form, was still getting called up. Even when he hadn't scored a goal in a year, he got called up in September camp. Now he is actually scoring. Now he's actually in really good form and is actually one of the top scorers in the Eredivisie. So he's going to go. Josh Sargent is also in good form, also was there in September. He's going to go. He's a great system fit. I'm so glad he's had a resurgence, and I am so glad that that's happening because it's happening at the right time. And you know what? I could honestly see a world in which all 3 strikers get 1 game starting. But yeah, Sargent will go. Who's on standby? Jordan Pefok. If he wasn't getting called up in September when he was scoring goals, now that he hasn't scored a goal in 8 games, he's not getting called up. He's not going to go to the World Cup. Yeah, he brings something different and would have been a good option to have off the bench. I honestly would have brought all 4, potentially. But alas, he's not going to go. His form has dropped off. He's been battling through an injury as well, and he really hasn't been that good lately for Union Berlin, so he's not going to go to the World Cup. Haji Wright's technically on standby. If something happens to 2 guys, Haji Wright's there. He's not going to go, though, more than likely. And then in the frowny face category is Brandon Vasquez. I wouldn't even necessarily put him on the final roster, but I thought he should have at least been in this October MLS camp to be with the guys to push guys like Jesus Ferreira to be better and to be at the top of their game going into the World Cup. Unfortunately, he was not given that opportunity and is in the frowny face category along with Georgi Mihailovic as the 2 players who were snubbed from that MLS camp. And honestly, I would have taken at least Georgie to the World Cup and maybe even Brandon Vasquez. But yeah, it is what it is. What can you do? Let's look at what the whole roster is going to look like. All right. here I have my 26, and the 2 injury doubts, which are Chris Richards and Luca De La Torre, are with an asterisk, and if they can't go, their replacements are at the bottom, Mark McKenzie and Christian Roldan. So Sean Johnson, Zack, Steffen, Matt Turner, we knew that. Center backs, like I said, they're pretty much set in stone. Fullbacks, for some reason, Berhalter likes bringing 5. Like I said, Cannon might get dropped. I hope Joe Scally doesn't get dropped. That would be a real problem. Defensive mids, we know. Midfielders, like McKennie is battling an injury too. He apparently might not be back he might not be able to start the first game. Even if he's hurt, McKennie's going to go. If he's close to recovery, he's going to go no matter what. Attacking midfielders, like I said, Tillman is a tight one. It might be him. It might be Roldan. It might be Jordan Morris. I don't know. At the end of the day. And then, yeah, these 6 at the end are all going to go. Honestly, Berhalter is really predictable with his rosters. And this is my concluding point here. For the last 3 rosters, I was able to get it perfect, 1 mistake, and perfect. So his last 3 rosters, I've been able to predict them without inside knowledge. I've been able to predict them pretty much perfectly. This one is tricky because, like, there aren't that many players injured. Hopefully it stays the same, knock on wood, and we go into the World Cup with just about a clean bill of health because Miles Robinson is hurt. But it's looking good right now if everyone's there. We just need to hope that they're firing on all cylinders. And yeah, this is probably the team. We're just going to have to wait and see who Berhalter's final decisions are. Is it going to be Reggie Cannon? Is it going to be Tillman? Is it going to be Morris? Is it going to be Roldan? Is De La Torre going to be back? Is Richards going to be back? Fingers crossed he is. And could there be a surprise? Like a complete curveball? Like freaking Yedlin gets dropped or something? It's not outside the realm of possibility that something weird would happen from the roster. Weirder things have happened. But yeah, this is who I think is going to be the 26-man roster for the FIFA World Cup. So while you're here, once again, remember to subscribe, like the video, and share it on Twitter and follow me on TikTok. We've got some content coming in the next couple weeks before the World Cup kicks off in Qatar. I can't wait, guys. I'm so hyped. I cannot wait. It's 19 days away as I'm filming this, but like that's going to be the longest 19 days ever. I'll see you guys later. We've got some content coming in the next couple weeks before the World Cup kicks off in Qatar. But yeah, I will talk to you guys later.